not only transhumanism, but really affecting your mind. Forget about it's silent weapons for quiet wars. Look at this RAND document. This is, anybody can go check this out, the Security 2040. And this involves what? The FDA, the National Institute of Health, DARPA, IARPA, all working together with industries, institutions, the NGOs, and the universities as well, to bring in a very real, invasive and non-invasive transhumanist agenda. It's all in this document. In fact, that paragraph, let's go to the FDA section right here. It tells you all these people are not only working together, they're heavily funded. For instance, the NIH there had already allocated between 2014 and 2015, okay, well over $125 million. That's public, all right? Think about what they've been doing the last 6 years. This is for the global populace. It's not just the United States, right? DARPA has invested hundreds of millions of dollars on record since the early 2000s. That doesn't even include their black budget. And that's why the focus on transhumanism, at least right now, should be a priority, because as Alex has said, these quote unquote vaccines are really gene therapy, but they're not just gene therapy. Okay, mRNA, sure. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. All right. And I want to show you the strategic collaborators on mRNA, according to Moderna's own website. Who are they? DARPA. That's the Defense Department, folks. How honest has the Defense Department been, not only with the American people, but the global populace? Really think about that. Do they have any vested interest in telling the truth to the public when they are constantly dealing with what? Classified issues, classified technologies, and beyond, things that are literally born classified and so compartmentalized, very few people get to see that big picture. Do they tell you the truth about weapons of mass destruction? I mean, you could go to just the ISIS-K debacle, which they got caught on, where they killed women and children. You trust them then? You trust Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation, or Merck, or AstraZeneca, or Moderna itself? And then you realize that they partnered with DARPA, and this was up on their own website up until about a month ago, but that's okay. And the funny thing is that, yeah, they are therapeutics here, right? They don't even dare call them vaccines, because you actually had to change the definition in this COVID-19 84 nightmare to include these type of quote unquote therapeutics or drugs into vaccines, just like they did with the vector-based technology. Okay. And what's funny is, not only did they partner with them on pandemics, right? That's the headline here. It was pandemics. But if you look at their own page, it wasn't just pandemics. It was actually infectious diseases and engineered biological weapons. You mean like a virus that has, I don't know, certain protein fragments of HIV in it? And you have people like Luc Montagnier coming out and saying that this was obviously engineered in a lab, and you've never found an animal reservoir? Weird. You're injecting that into us. And then on top of it, you're going to sell us a program called Operation Warp Speed, where you can further classify its distribution investors. Great idea. Great idea. And that is a huge failure of the Trump administration. And I think those people that are still wrapped up in the idea that you're going to vote your way out of this, and that somehow this red wave, I keep seeing it on the right-wing networks, the red wave's coming, we're going to stop these socialist Democrats. This is about authoritarianism. All right, don't get me wrong. There are socialist aspects of it, because they got to promise you something, right? This has always been my, big problem with, progressives and their dreams of Medicare for all. What Medicare? You mean the one where they refuse you ivermectin? You mean the one where they cut off monoclonal antibodies? You mean the one where they don't even want you to know about budesonide? And I will give props right now to the Florida Surgeon General, because he's come out and said that the Biden administration, and I call it the Zombie J administration, right? Because Biden's not really running it. Kamala Harris isn't running anything. I mean, she's an embarrassment. And said, look, they're costing people's lives by not getting the monoclonal antibodies. But then on TV last night, he also mentioned that you had all these other cheap therapies like inhaled budesonide for over a year. How many people know about that in the public arena? I mean, makes sense. A steroid that gets into your lungs. And remember, early reports, even out of China, okay, even out of China, when I was covering this in February and March, before any lockdowns in this country, said what? They were successfully treating people early with steroid treatments and vitamin infusions, C and D. Oh, you got censored for that, right? The United Nations didn't want you to know about it. The World Health Organization, literally an establishment that is just like filled with pedophilia. I mean, the last scandal, again, the Ebola in the Congo scandal, where now, again, we have to take advice from these authoritative sources that censor us that are involved in child rape. It's unbelievable, but it's generational. Let's bring it back to the Epstein case just in this last little segment for a second. All right. What do you know about Lord Mountbatten? Well, I'll tell you something about Lord Mountbatten. He was a NATO commander. He's a part of the royal family. He's Charles's favorite uncle and Andrew's uncle. Oh, he's also somebody that the FBI knew about before he had some of those positions, who had a lust and perversion for young boys. This is generationally psychopathic and predatory. And if you think these people have your best interests at heart, you better think again. We are back. I am Jason Burma, sitting in for, I believe, the final segment of the final hour of the Alex Jones Show. And let me reach out to the audience before we finish up here and talk about this Maxwell verdict, the larger picture with Epstein, and a network that really goes well beyond Epstein, right? It goes into the Iran-Contra network. It goes into the same network that carried out and covered up 9/11. That is a reality. But how would the public know those things if it weren't for Infowars.com and Alex Jones? Look, Alex and I have had our differences. We've known each other for many, many years. But I still remember, okay, all the way back in the day before I made Loose Change with Dylan Avery and Corey Rowe, finding out that I was lied to about 9/11 and trying to find as much information as possible. And I came across a download of a real media file that was out of sync. It was over 2 hours long. It was 9/11, The Road to Tyranny. And it was this low production, gruff Southerner in what appeared to be like a, I don't know, Access TV studio, Alex? Saying things that I thought were over the top then. And sometimes presenting evidence that was eye-opening to me. But at the same time, I go, I want to prove this guy wrong. And unfortunately, as I was looking more and more into these things, although maybe he articulated it in a different manner, I soon came to find that he was indeed correct about the vast majority of what was presented in that film. And that led me into so many other avenues and directions. And not only did I focus on 9/11 with Loose Change, Final Cut, and Fabled Enemies, but I expanded into Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined with Infowars.com. Really my swan song. Go take a look at that picture right now, free. And it lays so much of what has already happened out well over a decade ago. And we reached a lot of people with that film, and then Shade the Motion Picture. And he reached a lot of people with the Obama deception. Okay. And these were important to the zeitgeist around us that began questioning narratives. And now, despite the gaslighting on NBC and CBS, right, and mainstream media, CNN, all that stuff, the vast majority of people are questioning the reality that's presented on that box. The vast majority of people would rather listen to their neighbor in many instances and see what is posted on social media. And that's why you've seen so much censorship the last 2-3 years, and InfoWars is a target. So I'm going to say this. I know he's got great products. I know Reset Wars is out there. SaveInfowars.com. Give a straight donation before 2022. Let the man take a rest. We all need a rest. Trust me. One of the main things of this whole nightmare, this COVID-19 84 nightmare, is that you are also going to have to find a way to navigate this situation. I don't like talking about bioweapons that have been unleashed on the public and then injected into the public in different regimens. But that was something I was talking about with Alex Jones over a year ago on my program when we were discussing how do we become the great resistance to this very real Great Reset agenda. Okay. One of the ways that you help resist, guess what? It's supporting this broadcast. And Infowars.com isn't perfect. Jason Burmis ain't perfect. I can tell you that right now. But the heart is in the right place. And we want to see more arrests, more convictions, more accountability. I'd love to see the checks and balances of a judicial, executive, and legislative branch. But in order for that to occur, at the very bare minimum, guess what? You have to have a fourth estate that asks tough questions. You have to have a fourth estate that points out that Jean-Luc Brunel was very much a part of this Epstein network, just like Peter Nygard was a part of this Epstein network. And it seems very apparent that despite what the media has said, come on, Les Wexner was absolutely a part of this network. And Les Wexner, aside from being, this highfalutin billionaire in all these different arenas of fashion and models, right? He was very much involved in foreign policy for the Israelis. In fact, there's a document out there from the Wexner Institute where the United States had toppled Saddam, but it was talking about how do we keep the United States in Iraq now that the people have already seen us go into Afghanistan and take over there, now that we've seen mission accomplished over in Iraq as well, how do we get them to stay? And they talked about a multitude of methods to manipulate the populace into doing so. And guess what? We're still there, aren't we? We're still in Iraq. How about that? That 20-year anniversary will come up sooner than you know. I think, what are we, about 18 months out from that? Something like that? 18, 19 months? So this military-industrial complex does move on. And unfortunately, that's a reality we all have to face. And that's what this battle is, really. It is the battle for humanity, because the transhumanist nightmare they want to impose on us through regulations, through trying to say that we're harming the planet, our carbon needs to be reduced. Okay, we need a social credit score so we can all have a stakehold in the new society about our feelings, right? Meanwhile, they use the technology to empower themselves over us. They are beholden to none of those rules. And our very souls, or whatever you believe we have, because I'm not a Bible thumper, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. But I think our consciousness, our very being, is something that they cannot replicate, that goes well outside of the, 2-3D dimensional universe that we see. We know there are other, not only spectrums of light, but things that are around us we could never even comprehend. We can't accept that. We also know that our very beings, our minds, our thoughts are extremely powerful, and that's something they've tried to suppress with their technology. So you want to hardwire something into your brain, or you want to allow these people to use their quote-unquote non-invasive technologies and magnetic fields to then monitor your brain and whether or not you might be a dissident. That's all in this document. Again, forget about silent weapons for quiet wars and all that stuff that is written back. They're putting it in their own technological white papers and openly touting who's going to be doing it. The robots are now rolling out on a commercial basis. Spot the DARPA robot is doing dances. Meanwhile, they're telling you the human race is going to the stars. We're going to the moon. We're going to Mars. We're going to colonize. We're going to do all these great things. That's not reality. They're going to trap you in a metaverse, in virtual reality, in isolation, in not only a pharmaceutical, medical, tyrannical nightmare like we're seeing now, but one that involves bio-nanotechnology that can do things we can only imagine. And once again, Infowars.com has been at the forefront for exposing that agenda. I am Jason Bermas. I've been around a while as well. All my documentary films are free. You can find them over at my YouTube channel, which I did get back because of a lot of you guys and the fact that, again, it's all selective enforcement and they want to censor the truth to promote their false narrative that is an inverted reality. We're going to fight them tooth and nail. I know you are too. So follow me over at Twitter. Rockfin.com/Jason Bermas. That's where all my stuff is, completely uncensored. They don't kick me off of that platform. Still got to make that band.video page, but that is another great platform for free speech that we have to use to empower one another. So get out there, start, photo bombing and telling the truth on these live newscasts. Collect that $5,000 bounty. Do your own thing. Be a human being. Step outside. Do this on a personal level with your neighbors, your friends, your families. Don't have fear. Find a point where you can agree on something and work your way out from there. There is hope in this. I do believe that. And again, that's one of the aspects of this Ghislaine Maxwell trial. They are having to burn some of their own. Do you think that Epstein thought he was going to have his neck broken in 3 places? Do you think that Ghislaine Maxwell thought she was going to spend her 60th birthday in prison? Not likely, folks. So let's keep fighting the good fight.